You're watching us here on Midcap Radar. I'm Mangalam Malu. With me, Hormaz Fatakia. We come to you live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studio. It's a day of consolidation for the frontline indices, but can't say the same of the broader markets. In fact, your portfolios would be looking a lot better. 1,700 stocks in the green for about 1,100 stocks in the red. Not a bad outcome, Hormaz, especially given the fact that we're sitting on 8 days of constant rally.
Par for the course, right? It is buyer's exhaustion coming in sooner or later.
Or maybe just pause
levels. For pause. Maybe people didn't venture out today because of the rains. And yes, the other good part is the fact that the Nifty Bank is participating. It's keeping the index where it is right now. Although it did cross that 55,000 mark intraday. We'll talk about all of this in just a bit. But these are the headlines that we are tracking at 1:30 this afternoon. Stocks trade in a narrow band, but the market breadth remains positive. Realty and industrials eke out gains, while IT, consumer durables and healthcare are the big drags. Mid-caps are the outperformers.
KRBL stumps as the independent director Anil Kumar Chaudhary resigns over governance issues, highlights issues like inconsistencies in recording board meetings, the minutes, information being withheld from the directors, unjust concerns over CSR fund usage, among many others. We'll discuss more of that later in the show.
Northern Capital has gained over 7% after DAM Capital initiated coverage on the stock with a bullish recommendation. The brokerage believes that easing interest rate environment will help expand its margins. The stock is doing well today.
RailTel gains on a large contract that the company has won. It's secured for almost 210 crore rupees from BEPC. Other railway stocks too gain in trade on the back of order wins and various new pieces.
And STL Networks, the demerged entity of Sterlite Tech, is up in a 5% upper circuit after Nvidia, the brand name, has secured a contract worth over 360 crore rupees from Power Grid Tele, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Power Grid, and that order win is almost a quarter or more of its market cap.
All right, we were talking about a lot of these mid-caps doing well. This afternoon definitely belongs to the real estate players. You know, we had the WPI come by earlier. Lata did say that maybe it leaves the door ajar for a little more on the rate action from the RBI this time around. Let's see whether that happens or not in the October meeting. The street is excited about the prospects for real estate. We have the realty index, which has moved higher, Phoenix Mills, we have DLF, we have Oberoi Realty, Lodha Developers. So whichever real estate player that you're looking at right now, all of them are either at the high point of trade or at the higher end of today's trading range so far. We're also seeing some traction on a couple of these retailers. So Avenue Supermarts comes up for you on the screen, doing fairly well. And Vodafone Idea, ahead of the Supreme Court hearing on AGR dues, has been fairly well bid, up around 8.5% right now as we speak. We're also seeing some traction, continued traction on names like Anant Raj Industries, Godavari Power, Parag Milk continues to do well, Northern Arc, and don't lose sight of Hari Om Pipes. That's a stock which is up 7% too. But for a lot more in terms of mid-cap movers and buzzers, we have Hormaz, who's walked across to the wall. Hormaz, what are you looking at?
There are a lot of them in the broader markets. They're the outperformers in today's session, as you mentioned. And Parag Milk, of course, does feature in this list. It's continuing to build on from where it left off last week, and 9.5% higher on the stock. Godavari Power among the top gainers. Themis Medicare was up 20% upper circuit on Friday, up another 10% in today's session as well. Railway stocks are doing well today, and they are leading the gains. Of course, they're slightly off the highs, though. RailTel, Ircon, RVNL, all of them seeing gains of anywhere between 3 to 6%, and IRFC too chugging along with these railway names. A lot of the newsmakers in focus today. Anant Raj is up 12%. There were reports of some data center incentives. KRBL, of course, we'll talk about this in just a bit, still 9.5% lower on the stock. And Northern Arc, of course, the brokerage initiation coming in, positive moves there as well. The stocks that are doing well on the volumes front, look at Sigachi Industries, was up almost 35 to 40% last week, another 6% today. JBM Auto, another news-driven name from Friday, and IFCI and Banco Products up 11% on very strong volumes. And lastly, some high-flying names from last week are seeing some profit booking today. Let Revenues or Ixigo is down 6, Precision Camsafts is also down. Yatra, after the tear that it saw after its results from levels of sub 100 to 160, also witnessing some profit booking in today's session, Mangalam.
Take that point. Thank you, Hormaz, for putting up all those stocks which are buzzing around. Meanwhile, the bottom of your screen tells you that India-EU FTA talks are proceeding well, on track to be concluded by year-end. That's about the trade talks. UK-India FTA has happened. India-EU talks on progress. All eyes on what takes place between India and the US. But as that continues, important to look at what the market levels are you should be watching out for. Ruchit Jain of Motilal Oswal Financial Services joins in. Ruchit, from 24,500, we moved all the way up to 25,100 in a matter of just about 8 days. Today's pause for bread, do you think it's an occasion for bulls to buy, or would you wait for better levels?
Yeah, hi, very good afternoon. So we think that the short-term trend for the market has definitely turned positive, although we are witnessing some consolidation in the index because the 21st August high, which was 25,150, is acting as a bit of a resistance. But you look at the broader markets, then clearly we are witnessing a good buying interest over there. So I think that till this 20-day on the Nifty is intact, which is around 24,850, there's nothing much to worry about once 25,150 is taken out. So I think the momentum would see a resumption of the move in the index as well. But for now, focusing more on a stock-specific strategies with a positive bias, I think that's the key to get some short-term opportunities.
All right, and what are those stocks that you're looking at right now?
So a couple of names, which are looking quite positive. One is Geo Finance. If you look at the positional chart, we have seen some correction in last couple of weeks. The stock has good support around 310 rupees. And from that support, the stock seems to be resuming its positive trend. So within an overall uptrend, we say that one should look for a buy on dip approach whenever the trend is positive. And I think this dip provides a good opportunity to take fresh entries in Geo Finance. So Geo Finance can be bought with stop below 307 for potential targets around 332 in the short term. And real estate space is one sector which is looking quite positive from a near-term perspective. We've already seen some price-wise as well as time-wise corrective phase in many of the stocks within this space. Phoenix Mills, technically is looking quite bullish from current levels, that is, as it has been giving a falling trendline breakout with good volumes and a positive momentum. So Phoenix Mill is another one which we are recommending to go along with stop loss below 1540 for potential targets around 1700.
Ruchit, thank you for spending time and joining us today with your views on the index and specific stocks as well. Phoenix Mills among the recommendations there from Ruchit. The real estate index now at the highest point of the day, 3% higher there in today's session. Take a short break. More on the markets on the other side. Stay tuned.
But a couple of signs that may make bulls feel a little better now, even as we're consolidating. Reliance, the top contributor to the Nifty, in fact, the top weight on the Nifty, has moved to the high point of trade. So that's a positive. The other sector which was underperforming, the IT pack, still under a wee bit of pressure, but fairly off lows. In fact, Infosys has seen a good amount of recovery. Almost half of today's losses have been recovered. So Infosys is still off about 1% from the lows today. That's a positive. And the third part is that the Nifty Bank continues to hold on to that 54,900 mark. But a bunch of stocks which are under pressure right now include the likes of Metro Brands, and we also have KRBL, which has been under pressure right from the word go ever since the director's resignation citing corporate governance issues came by. Hetal Dalal, who's the president and COO at Institutional Investor Advisory Services, joins in now. Hetal, thank you so much for joining in. This is something which is usually unheard of, one of those rare cases where the director has tendered the resignation citing corporate governance issues in the company. The question from a shareholder standpoint is, what happens next? Do they deepen the inquiry? What do the regulators do? Do they take note of this? And what is usually the course of action from here on?
Sure. So, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me on the show. If you look at KRBL, essentially what's happened is you have an independent director, like you rightly said, talking about or raising concerns over corporate governance issues at the time of resignation. And this is a regulatory requirement in terms of the fact that independent directors have to sort of articulate what is the reason for resignation. He's resigned within a year of joining. There's another director, Ashok Pai, who's also resigned just about a year, not having completed the term. And resignations of independent directors so quickly are never a good sign. I think one of the things which is being sort of suggested in the letter at this stage, and it's an accusation at this stage, is the fact that there are significant governance concerns in the way the board is functioned. There's essentially dysfunction at the board level. And there is also, in terms of spending money, right, money being given to office of profit positions, which is essentially relatives of the promoter, and how CSR spends are being actually used. Now, the chairperson of the board is the promoter. Promoters have about 60% equity in the business, 13% is with institutions, and the remaining 26% or 27% is essentially with retail shareholders. So, what you really want essentially going forward now is an independent investigation into whether these allegations are, or whether there's merit in any of these allegations. Now, how will you run an independent sort of investigation? One option is, of course, for the independent directors to run an investigation, but given the fact that there is an accusation for of board dysfunction, right? You question whether the independent directors are essentially going, whether it sort of signals a certain degree of objectivity in terms of the investigation going on. So, therefore, the only option you're now left with is the regulator to step in, perhaps, and sort of address these issues, or at least ask the board to address these issues and take note of it and see whether an investigation is actually required. I think one of the things that we should also note is when the independent director resigned, which was on 8th of September, there was a very cursory filing on the stock exchanges without the letter being attached, which is actually not in line with what regulations want. It's only on the 13th of September, which is yesterday, that we found that the entire detailed letter has been filed. So all of these are not very good telling signs. Whether there is any merit and the degree of accuracy to these allegations again remains to be seen. But an independent investigation certainly needs to be called for.
Hetal, thank you for joining in. That's the bigger issue, right? The disclosure about the resignation was made last week. The details were only made public on Sunday.
That's right.
And so, so as part of the next step, does the independent director, or should he be asked to detail the allegations or put them out in greater detail compared to what he has shared in his resignation, to know the kind of issues that are plaguing the company currently?
No, I don't think that's the way to go. I think what the independent director has done is rightfully articulated the issues based on which the resignation, based on which he has resigned. I think now it is up for an independent investigation to actually assess whether those allegations are indeed accurate and the degree of accuracy to what is being said.
Right, and what proportion of that is measurable? Because some of the data points that you're speaking about, or some of the allegations that we're speaking about here, can be measured looking at the annual report, etc. Our colleague, did put out that increments to some of the key managerial personnel were to the tune of 16 to 30% over the last 2 financial years, even as the median increment was 9%, and the profits of the company actually declined. So some of the allegations around pay and all of that could be backtracked and corroborated. What about the not recording meetings of board minutes or all the others, which are slightly more qualitative in nature as well? How do you corroborate that with an independent audit?
See, whether board minutes are being accurately written out or not is a function of what directors finally say happened in the board meeting and what the minutes really say. See, today, if board meetings happen with video conferencing, then there is a recording which is available. If they've happened physically, then it does become a little bit of, we said, but it was not recorded. But if it happens consistently and directors are sort of raising this as a concern, then there is at least some degree of establishment of this issue. Today, the KRBL's board is not even compliant with regulations, right? Having 2 independent directors resign in quick succession in less than a year, having not completed their tenure, almost around a year. You have the chairperson who's a promoter. Ideally, 50% of the board should be independent directors. It's not. It's a 7-member board where there are 3 independent directors. And I think given the allegations which are now out there, for them to get credible independent directors to join itself will be a little bit of a concern. But that's really where it is. I think the inside functioning of the board is not, stakeholders outside are not privy to the inside functioning of the board. So if there are allegations saying that the minutes are not properly handled, or all of it is not getting communicated into board minutes, that's something that an investigation and the regulator will be able to handle. But sitting outside for stakeholders to be able to assess that is a bit of a challenge.
Indeed. And, it's, of course, has there been a precedent prior to this is not very often that you see an independent director resigning as quickly as this person has and citing corporate governance issues. That's the first bit. And the second bit is, what can the company now do for damage control? Because this is not the first time that such an allegation has emerged for KRBL. The auditor's note also flags that some of the promoters are also under investigation over some other issues as well.
That's right.
What does the company do here as damage control, and has there been any such precedent in the past as well?
Look, there have been instances where independent directors have cited concerns over corporate governance issues. A quick one to mind, unfortunately, is Z, where you did have an independent director who resigned citing significant corporate governance issues and raising concerns over board functioning. You've seen that in a handful of instances. See, one of the things that the regulator had brought in a couple of years earlier was that you can't sort of simply say that independent directors are resigning because of personal reasons. There has to be an articulated reason of why resignations are happening, and you are finding that some of the directors are happy to step up and actually talk about some of these particular issues. I think from the perspective of the company, they first need to address this. You can't just leave it open-ended saying we filed on the stock exchange, this is what the director has said, and then leave it without any kind of statement that the board makes. And I think therefore at least a holding statement and sort of suggesting an investigation to be brought up is the least that they can do.
I take that point entirely, and I'm looking at their shareholding pattern right now as well. Yes, you did point out that institutions are holding stake in the company, but no notable institutions out there as well. Yes, FIs hold about 6.7%, but no one entity above 1% that needs to be disclosed. The domestic mutual funds are 0.6%. Again, no one entity which has been disclosed. And finally, we do have the government holding about 6% stake, which is obviously the Enforcement Directorate, which has about 6% stake in the company. So let's see where this goes on from here, and what sort of relief would shareholders in this company, the minority shareholders, get out here. Hetal, thank you so much for joining in. Obviously, this is the start of a series of conversations that we will be having on this issue. I'm sure we will be watching all the developments out here very closely, and we'll keep inviting you as and when there are fresh updates on that one. With that, take a short break, come back, get you more of the markets, stock-specific action, a lot buzzing, a lot falling. We'll discuss all of them threadbare.
Welcome back. A lot of movers in the broader markets as of now, even though the Nifty has seen a bit of a dip and was down around 30 points currently. Saw a big dip and now has seen some buying emerge again from the lower levels. Yatharth Hospitals is one such stock. The stock did well in the initial part of the session, slightly off the day's high today, but still holding on to gains of around 4%. Vinny is here to tell us more about what is causing this 4% up move. Vinny.
Hi, yes, Yatharth Hospital, that's the stock that we'll be keeping an eye out. We're keeping an eye out on is because they've acquired 100% stake in Shantived Institute of Medical Sciences. This is in Agra. Now, this is a cash deal, 260 crores. The hospital they have acquired, that is, they currently have 150 beds. That can expand to 250 beds. Now, other than that, the revenue for this Shantived Hospital, that's around 50 crores. And they have around 35% occupancy as well as an RPOP of around 31,000 crore rupees. Now, we have a note that came in from Centrum on this as well. They're maintaining their reduced rating but increased the target price to 800 rupees from previous target price of 740 rupees per share. They expect Yatharth maybe to further actually leverage its brand, and in terms of positioning in Agra, what Centrum also highlights that this brand has a very good value proposition in terms of also the name of this brand is quite good, and in terms of the following that they have for the brand and the name, that is quite big. So that is something that Yatharth could capitalize on. They will optimize in terms of the payer mix that the company has, as well as in terms of ARPOP. They expect that Yatharth could improve the ARPOPs and bring them to by 10 to 8% in the next couple of years. Other than that, the factor that they say is for Yatharth Hospital that could do well is in terms of overall the majority of positives that are much higher than the negatives for Yatharth Hospital, and that is why in terms of upgrade that comes in for the EPS side as well, and they're positive on Yatharth Hospital.
All right, take that point. That's about Yatharth Hospital, where they serve medicines from Dawa. Let's go to Daru. Let's talk about all the alcohol beverages stocks. We have Radico Khaitan and Allied Blenders in particular. They're doing well. United Breweries, rather United Spirits, just under 1%, not particularly bad on that one as well. We've seen a Jefferies initiating coverage on this space today. United Spirits, their target is 1570, Radico Khaitan 3500, and Allied Blenders 620. Hormaz, you and I are not part of the group that they're talking about when it comes to consumption. They believe that premiumization is picking up. India's low per capita consumption and favorable demographics work for this industry, and they don't expect any less than double-digit CAGR to continue for this entire industry. But in that, because United Spirits has seen a correction of almost 20-25% from the peak, they believe it's a good entry point. Radico by itself, on account of premiumization and margin expansion, can deliver EPS CAGR of 35% over the next few years. And Allied Blenders, a recent entrant to the stock market, has showcased how the gross margins, EBITDA margins, and net profit have expanded for them. So they believe this can be a dark horse with meaningful upside. The execution on margins holds the key for this one. So they're taking a big sip of the Alco Bev market on a Monday morning itself. United Spirits, good entry point. Radico Khaitan, 35% CAGR. Allied Blenders, maybe a bit of a dark horse. I think on that note, we'll have to call cheers on this show.
Cheers on this show. And Dawa and Daru always go hand in hand, don't they? And that's all the time we have on this edition of Midcap Radar. We leave you with the Nifty, exactly where it was when we started the show off, slightly 30 points lower. And from Manglam and me, thank you for watching. Your stocks on the other side.